Well, if you are living a life that does not satisfy your needs or demands, chances are that you may be having a pretty broke life, and you need to mend it at the earliest possible instance. Now, if you've been looking for a kind of content with which you can relate and work together, stick to the end because in this video, we'll be dealing with a few problems that only broke people will be able to understand. Welcome back, everyone. We're here to disclose and discuss a few problems that only the broke people among us will understand. This is a pretty serious thing, as it becomes really hard to live with, knowing the fact that you have very little to do against it. Hit the like button if anyone gets to relate with these things, and subscribe to this channel to find more relatable content regarding money. Let us get started. Well, jokes aside, being broke is one of the worst situations for anyone to be in. Having seen a lot of people suffer, it has come to our attention that life as we see it is not something that is entirely controllable. There are a lot of elements in it, which are not fully in our hands, and there's a huge role of external agent in fulfilling them. Life, therefore, is a very sensitive topic that may vary in perception from person to person. So for you, what life could mean, and at what stage would you consider yourself to be broke? What is the benchmark you have set for yourself? The first sign that suggests you are broke is your internal desire to not want any form of gifts. Yes, this is true. Even though a lot of us like receiving gifts, it is said that a broke person would certainly not like getting gifts. One of the major reasons why you may not like getting gifts is because you know that you cannot reciprocate. This builds up an internal complex within you, and you just get too stressed with the entire situation. What happens here is that when someone gives you a gift that you personally could not have afforded for yourself, or maybe it's just too much for a third person to give you, you immediately start thinking of a way to reciprocate it and make it balance in one way or the other. The stress of having to think so much and take such tension is what makes you not like getting gifts. This is very normal considering the fact that there are a lot of people who feel that way. Not everyone is as rich as the other person they meet. They all have limitations, and having limitations is a sign that you are financially independent, which is a very good thing. You know where you stand, and you live based on your standards. You must be proud of it. This is commonly noticed during the vacations when you meet your friends and family and cannot afford to reciprocate the gifts they give you. This is one of those times where you just feel like skipping everything and resorting to your own four walls alone. Now, this could have a lot of mental side effects and hence must certainly be avoided. There are a lot of things that both parties involved here can do to make the person feel better. One of the best ways is to make sure that the gifts you give are not that costly, which could make the other person feel inferior afterwards. The second thing that will happen with a broke person is the fact that their financial status will reflect their worthiness and their attitude. You will very easily notice that a person who has a good amount in his bank will certainly look more confident and will take up the challenges without a lot of fear. Whereas on the other hand, the same person will look way less confident about himself when their bank balance starts climbing down. This is another very common indicator when a person is broke. This may not be noticeable to a person other than the person who is going through it. This internal trauma keeps eating the broke person from the inside, and if he is not strong enough to sustain it, he may permanently lose all of his confidence, which could make his life really miserable. As the bills start exceeding your income and the payment schedules show that you are overdue on a lot of them, you realize that you don't have a lot to do against it and start resorting to losing confidence in yourself and your abilities. You may end up stressing yourself with work about still not being able to make good returns out of it as you do things with a lack of confidence and end up making more mistakes. Always remember that you need to be strong enough to not let your weaker side take over. As your self-esteem keeps lowering, you feel like staying alone and not spending time with your family, friends, or loved ones. Family life becomes even harder as the family keeps an expectation from you, which makes things even harder. This is when you need to ensure that you're constantly keeping yourself encouraged and consider these hard things as temporary, which they actually are. If you continue to work hard with good confidence, you will get over these inconsistencies and will certainly help you win a lot more than you actually thought you could. At this time, if you are seeing anyone who may be going through these problems, make sure you offer them your support and value them, as this may be a very good way for you to help boost their confidence. The third thing that you may notice in the people who are broke is that they often get advice on how to make a better living for themselves, which further depresses them. However, at the same time, keep in mind that this is something that they would very well have done if they were motivated enough already. It is a fact that repeating the same thing again may not have the best effect on the person who are going through it. This could irritate them, which could lead to the situation getting worse than it already is. So, always make sure that you have enough patience to let them sort things out for themselves and be able to provide them the support they require. Do not force them into changes that they themselves were not able to make. Speaking about it may be good, where you could learn of the problems they face, but do not keep repeating the same pieces of advice again and again, as it could destroy their morale. On number 4, you will notice that you are not able to fix things when there is a need to make those fixes. This will lead them to just keep using the same thing again and again for a long time and not be able to make a good reparation for it. This is one of the most common things noticed, and therefore, it is not a piece of serious evidence. One may be financially sound, but may not consider the part that needs a replacement that important to waste his money. So, things may not be as they look all the time. You need to know the person well before you make any assumptions about them. One may have to take up multiple incomes to make sure he keeps earning the amount he requires to keep him over the kind of expenses he has. This may be a very serious problem, as he may not even be enjoying his lifestyle in that case. It is very important for the person to enjoy a bit and be able to invest his time in himself as well, rather than working on his responsibilities all the time. The amount of money a poor person may have may not be sufficient for him to have a good life, let alone the repairs he needs to make. This may worsen when emergency medical needs come in or when they have to spend on something that is very important. The effect of them being broke feels twice as stronger than in normal cases. The next point we will be telling you sounds pretty much the opposite of what may actually be the case. If you consider the case of rich people, they are constantly in debt in one way or the other, as they constantly borrow money for their projects or investments. This is something that is very normal for them. However, when it comes to poor people, borrowing money becomes harder, and it has also been considered a great taboo for them to borrow. This is something that, yet again, throws the morale of a poor person overboard and makes life harder for them. So, this makes it harder for a broke person to come to you for help. Try to help them in the best way possible. Do not wait for them to ask you for some help. They may not do it as they don't want to be a burden on you. On the other hand, even if they deny you the help you offer, don't be disappointed. Their mental state does not permit them to take any help either. It's just too hard to be at the stage they are at that point. They are on the verge of losing their self-esteem. They've been going through a lot of problems on a daily basis. Last thing they would want to happen is to be a burden on you. The 6th problem that a broke person will generally go through is their disability of filling up the gas tank. Yes, this is the most serious one of them all. They may try all ways possible and will try to ensure that they don't have to use up their car a lot, but in the end, they may end up facing a situation where they cannot afford to fill up their cars. This is a very huge issue they face, and with the price of fuel climbing sky high, it becomes even harder for them to have a peaceful life, and commuters they deem will be right. They may then end up waiting for public transport, messing up their schedule, and get even more burdened with the way things are for them. One may have to spend as much as $40 at a time to get the kind of fuel required to fill their tanks up. However, this may not be possible for a person who has been going through extreme financial instabilities. Spending that much on fuel could be a lot in comparison to the other needs they already have lined up for ages. Next up, the issue you always have all around the clock is a way to make more money. They will constantly be under the pressure of making money, which will help them pay all their debts and be able to stand on their own legs. These factors often tend to be one of the major things they need to accomplish to make sure that they are able to withstand the needs they have and the bills they need to pay. A broke person will constantly have to look for more opportunities and will work himself to the best possible extent to make sure he gets paid enough. He will constantly be under distress to somehow manage and be able to stand on his own legs without having to take any money from his friends or relatives. Even though making money is there on everyone's mind, when it comes to the ones who are broke, it is more about a necessity rather than being a dream for them. They don't dream of making a lot of money, but only so much to help them have a life of their own. A shortage of money consumes their brain at a rate faster than any other problem. This, therefore, is one of the biggest issues they need to resolve. So, if there is one thing we would want to tell such a person who is going through such a financial situation, is to worry less about these problems, because the time you use up for worrying is something that could certainly make up for a very valuable one later ahead. The 7th indicator is something that could really be a problem for them. This is the part when it comes to splitting the bills equally. When it comes to our friends who are not financially sound, they will resort to the cheaper alternative available in the restaurant. This is with an intention of having to pay lesser at the end of the day when it comes to paying for your meals. On the other hand, if everyone decides to pay the bill equally by the end of the meal, it becomes hard for them as they will now have to pay for a part of others' meals as well. This is what they might have a problem with, but they cannot say much about it because they just don't want to look bad in front of their friends. A lot of the time, and this is the 8th one today, poor people will resort to ignoring the problem rather than trying to find a fix for it. They would just think of not solving it and trying to just live with it. This is one of the main ways of identifying a person who is broke, as they live under the presumption, as they lack confidence, that anything and everything in this world requires money to be resolved. As they continue with this viewpoint, they tend to ignore these problems and just live with them. The second last way of identifying a person who is not financially settled is their inability to not be able to take a day off on a sick day. As they lack money already, they will continuously need to work to ensure they are able to keep themselves stable and over the required margin to live a life. In case you're on a comfortable salaried job, you get to have a stipulated number of sick leaves which you can make use of. However, this is not the case when it comes to the life of a person who is not financially sound. This is mostly the case when it comes to the people who do hourly jobs. So each hour off their work costs them money which they cannot lose. This leads them to choose work over health and deteriorate things for themselves. This is not a habit one must continue for long. However, their financial situation forces them to take such steps and end up making a very bad mistake over time. The 10th issue is something that becomes even more problematic, but the cause here is the last issue we mentioned, not taking enough rest. Going to the doctor becomes a huge deal. A lot of money is spent on medical causes unless your government has a good system to help you with those expenses. This is a huge fear for a lot of people who are broke, and as a result of which, they resist going to the doctor whenever required. These were the issues that generally are being faced by people who are broke worldwide. If you are facing any one of these, make sure you keep your chin up and deal with it well. Never lose your confidence and always have trust in yourself. Find your strength and work on it gradually to make a better life for yourself. That's all for today. We will meet you in the next video. Until we meet again, continue being inspired. Hit the like button to keep us encouraged and subscribe to this channel for more informative content. Keep working harder.